Thank Hashem for the miracles in the past. I'm asking Hashem for even greater miracles now and complete peace now. I'm not saying Mizmor LeDavid. Yan Adonai b'yom tzara v'sagevcha Hashem Elohei Yaakov. Yishlach ezecha mekodesh u'mitzion yisadeka. Yizkar kol menchesecha v'iloscha yidashna seva. Iten lechochel v'gecha v'chol atzoscha yimali. V'ranana b'shua secha v'shem Eloheinu nidgul. Yimali Adonai kol mashali secha. Ata yedaiti ki Yeshia Adonai Mashiach. Yanehu mishmei kodsher. B'gvuros Yesha Yeminei. Eile Barechev, Eile Basusim, Anachnu b'Shem Adonai Eloheinu Nazkir. Heima Korov v'Nafogim, Anachnu Kamnu v'Naseidu. Adonai Yeshia, Hamelech Yaneinu v'Yem Kareinu. 77. In the second paragraph. V'zehu shetiryu unkelis, and this is what unkelis means with his translation. Les bar minoch. There's nothing else other than Hashem. Shakavana, his intention is lahitzi in nashita, to negate the idea of shituf, which means that not only that Hashem is in charge and he's stronger and he's superior and he controls everything, but nothing really truly exists without him. Even the angels, that they are considered the biggest in creation, and they are in charge of everything that goes on in the world. Gam heim einam etzias klal. In reality, they don't have any true existence themselves. Because if Hashem would want, Yizgala alehem yeser mechoika kotzel lahem. If Hashem would reveal to them a little bit more than the amount of chayas that was designated for them, Yizbatel legamri, and like we learned before, that they would become null and void. Thank you. Oh, that was quick. Like it was in the story brought down in the Medrash, when Hashem stretched out his little finger, and then it said, "Oh, got burnt; they were consumed by the fire." Pirish, what does it mean? There was no way they could exist once Hashem revealed the source. Came, but it says, so the same is with all other angels. If Hashem would reveal his source, they would become no, they would be gone. They couldn't exist as they are as angels, because all you would see and all that would be present is the source. So we go back to the same thing he said before. That doesn't mean that if Hashem would take his life flow and hide it, then they would be not existing. But now that Hashem's life flow is hidden, they are in existence. No. Therefore, Even at a time that Hashem does not reveal to them more than they could handle, even then, and now they do exist because Hashem is concealing His light. So they're not a real mitzias. The only reason why they exist is because Hashem is withholding His light, because Hashem is concealing His presence. So therefore, we see them as some sort of independent entity. Rakim shluchim, all they are shluchim shal yodam nimshach hashpa. So they're only a conduit through which Hashem does everything that He does. They're like an axe in the hand of the wood chopper, which means the axe, the hammer, the screwdriver, all these tools, they don't have any free choice. The person who's building, that's the one who makes all the choices, and he's the one who has the talent, and these are only tools. Therefore, we can't even use the word shituf. Again, shituf would mean partnership, that we're attributing a little, some degree of independence to them. I remind you, in the beginning of the mind, we mentioned that there is an expression also brought down in Chassidus, he doesn't bring it down in this mimer, that when you go to a party, the wine belongs to the master, but the thank you give to the waiter. So why am I saying thank you to the waiter? He doesn't own the place. He's not the one who's sponsoring the party. He was hired to be a waiter, so he's bringing me my portion. And the answer is because even that little bit that he's a waiter, he's doing something which makes a difference to me. He brings me the food a little bit earlier. I'm not the last online. I'm first. I'm in the middle. He puts it down properly. He doesn't spill the soup all over me. He does it with a smile. There are little things that make a difference. So I say thank you. Which means, of course, I understand that the waiter is nothing. It's only the master of the house. He's the one who's sponsoring the whole party. But I'm saying thank you for that little bit of whatever he contributes. But what we're saying here is there's no little bit. Nothing is contributing. In fact, there's no existence without Hashem. The example where it would be relevant is, let's say, by parents. By parents, it does say that we should honor them, as it says in Aseres HaDibros, you should honor your parents. As the Gemara says, there are three partners in the creation of a person. And who are the three partners? Hashem, the mother, and the father. Nikra Shutvim, why are they called Shutvim? How could you compare the contribution of the father and the mother to what Hashem does? Hashem gives the person life. Because there's a little area which is their choice. They chose to do what they did, and through that they brought this child into the world, and they're raising the child. So therefore, you give them cover. But angels, but angels have no free choice whatsoever. So of course, when you say free choice, that also doesn't mean, so there is some place in the world that exists outside of Hashem. Because even the power to have free choice and the power to make choices, ultimately everything comes from Hashem. But it means the way Hashem created the world, that's perceived as something which we do with free choice. And over there isn't even any perception of free choice. They're just like an instrument, like a tool in the hands of the person that does it. So one of the things that we walk away with when we learn this mimer is not to understand that the world doesn't really exist. On the contrary, the mimer explains the world does exist. But of course, it's to understand that the existence of the world is Hashem. And what does that make a difference to us? The difference to us is not in terms of just understanding. That's also true in terms of belief. And we say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. I should know the true meaning of the words that are coming out of my mouth. But there's also the more of a practical implication that we get from this is a deeper understanding of Hashgacha Pratis, which means that everything that happens in this world happens because of Hashem. These two things are connected. By the way, it's not totally, but generally speaking, it's connected, which means if I believe that Hashem is in charge 95%, but there's 5% that happens because of nature, because of certain rules. I have to give you an example of what the Baal Shem Tov says. I want to learn something inside, which you'll read, and help you see a little bit more clearly the Baal Shem Tov's explanation of Hashgacha Pratis based on this. If Hashem wants something to happen, for example, he wants a certain tree to fall down. So he makes a wind, a hurricane, very strong wind, and the tree falls down. But when there's a wind blowing, a lot of other things happen. There are millions of leaves that are flying back and forth. Different things happen to people because the wind is blowing. Is that also Hashgacha Pratis? Or the Hashgacha Pratis is that the wind should knock down the tree. Once the wind is knocking down the tree, once the wind blows, automatically things happen. Give me an example. There's a story in Gemara, famous story. Why am I saying it's famous? Because it's printed all over in the children's books, but it's a story from Gemara that there was someone called Rabbi Yosef Maker Shabbos. Means Rabbi Yosef, who always honored Shabbos. How did he honor Shabbos? He made a point for Shabbos to buy the most expensive fish that he could get. And that's how he honored Shabbos. And the Gemara tells a story that where he lived, there was a person who was, I guess he was the, whatever position it was, but he was the head of that city or state or country. And he was very wealthy. He owned, or maybe he was just the wealthiest person. He owned the forest, and he owned ships, and he owned homes, as real estate. And he had a dream, or he saw this in the stars. And the stargazers told him that they saw in the stars that all of his possession is going to be taken away, and it's going to be given to Yosef Maker Shabbos. So, of course, he was devastated. What could he do? So he decided to sell everything he owns, buy the most expensive diamond in the world, and keep this diamond next to him all the time. So there's no way that his money and his possession will go to someone else. And where did he put it? He sewed it inside his hat. And he never took his hat off his head. He had it with him all the time. So in that way he could be sure that his money will never get to Rabbi Yosef Maker Shabbos. So the Gemara says what happened was he was walking on a bridge, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, a wind started to blow, and the hat fell off his head into the sea. Of course, he was very upset, but he said to himself, at least nobody else is going to get my money. But at the end, Yosef Maker Shabbos bought a very big fish for Shabbos. And when his wife opened up the fish, what did she find? This huge diamond that's worth millions of dollars. So his money went to Yosef Maker Shabbos. Let's take this story as an example. Hashem made a big wind to blow. When that wind blew, did other things also happen? Of course. So the purpose of the wind was to blow his hat off his head, so the diamond should go into the sea, the fish should swallow the diamond, and it'll end up in Rabbi Yosef Maker Shabbos' house. But when the wind blows, like I said, leaves are blowing, people have papers that might get blown away, money gets blown away. You look outside, all the things that are hanging on the clothing line are blowing back and forth. A lot of things are happening. People's hair is blowing in the air. So is that also Hashgacha Pratis, or that's already by the way? So Hashem says, even though the appears to be the main reason is that, but every single thing that happens on the way is also Hashgacha Pratis. And by the way, if you wouldn't say that, then the whole idea of Hashgacha Pratis is not going to be very helpful. Why not? Because something happens to me and I say Hashgacha Pratis. I say, how do I say Hashgacha Pratis? Maybe something else was supposed to happen. And what happened to me is just by the way. So I'm not really Hashgacha Pratis. What happened to me, something was supposed to happen to someone else. And because it happened to them, I lost money. Imagine a person has a job. And the owner of the company where he works lost all his money. As a result of that, I lost my job. How do I know such pratis? Maybe Hashem wanted him to lose his money. By the way, I also lost my job. So Hashem does know if this person is supposed to lose his money, every single thing that happens to every single person and every single customer, everybody involved, it's Hashgacha Pratis. So there's a mimer from the Frierdiker Rebbe. And that mimer is a mimer where it explains the Hashgacha Pratis according to Baal Shem Tov. A little piece, but I don't think I found anywhere else, no mimer, no sicha, anywhere that explains it so clearly like in this mimer. So I decided to hire somebody to translate it in English so we can use it in class. I have to tell you an interesting story. When I decided to do that, I remember thinking about it was on Shabbos. And I wasn't asking any questions. I just sat down and there was a Sefer Pibos Kodesh in front of me. So I decided to open it up. I opened it up and just to look what interesting, what's there. So the letter is to someone who's asking the Rebbe whether it's okay to teach Chassidus to women. So the Rebbe writes back how important it is. But then the Rebbe writes, I can't even understand how people can go through life without understanding Hashgacha Pratis according to the Baal Shem Tov. So I figured, okay, that's a good haskama to do this printing. Let me give this out. You have here the Hebrew, the Maimer of the Frierdiker Rebbe, which he said in the year Tofrei Tzadik Vov, which is 1936. But we're going to do the English. I'm going to read it in English. It's going to be easier. In other words, if you think of it, what it says in the Maimer is that when Hashem creates a rooster, there's something that's created in Atzilus. From Atzilus it goes to Bria. From Bria it goes to Yetzirah. Yetzirah to Asiyah. There's a shtalshlus. And then Hashem creates the rooster. But it's not only the creations, everything that happens with the rooster, everything that happens with the tree, everything that happens with all the different things that are going on around us. And if you think that so much goes into what goes on, we'll realize everything's happening for a purpose. This is way beyond human comprehension. But nevertheless, just the idea to know that there is a purpose in Hashgacha Pratis changes our whole perspective. Let's take a look what he says here. All created beings in this physical world are divided into 4 general categories, which is Doimim, Tzomeach, Chaim, and Daber, inanimate, vegetation, animals, and humans. Each of these 4 include a vast multitude of many species. For example, the category of inanimate, things that have no life to it, but it includes many varieties. There's earth, there's rocks, there's metal, etc. Each category of these includes many subcategories, and every one of the individual subcategories compromises countless details that's in it. The same is true for the realm of vegetation. Animals, humans, every one of the individual being with each category has unique life force limited to that individual being, and that life force is its soul that makes it grow, controls it in all those details and affairs from the day it comes into existence until the last moment of its life when it ceases to live and wastes away. So he's going to give an example from the category of Tzemeach, the vegetation, plant category, which includes many general categories. There's trees, grain, vegetables, grasses, plants, etc. In each of these categories, there's a vast multitude. Trees, for example, have a tremendous multitude of species, differentiating one from another in their essential nature and their individual details. The same is true of grass and plants, which have a multitude of species, differentiating by their special qualities, ranging from medical herbs to poisonous species, two ends of the spectrum, varying in their appearance, their difference in their nature. Every one of these species includes a vast, limitless multitude, and every single one of that great multitude has a unique life force limited to that individual plant. In other words, the life force of Hashem that gives life to a flower is different than the life force of Hashem that gives life to a carrot. And the life force that gives life to a carrot is different than the one that gives life to an apple or an orange or a pear or any other vegetable or grass. The life force is different, just like the actual plant is different. It is that life force, it is the plant's soul, which enlivens it, gives it life, makes it grow, controls it. From when it emerges from deep within the ground, once it comes out of the ground, until its last moment when its end comes. And the end in accordance with the decree of the divine providence. That's also Bashgacha purpose. Is it ending because it's harvested by a scythe, I think it's called, or sickle, which are certain tools that are used to cut things off the ground in order to bring a perceptible benefit for feeding domestic animals? Or is it going to end by being trodden by foot for no advantage or to waste away when the time comes? Even that, what's going to be the end of the life of this grass or this plant is Bashgacha pratis. Will a person cut it off and use it? Will it be just destroyed? Could be destroyed by a flood, could be destroyed by wind, could be destroyed by animals stepping all over it. All that is Bashgacha pratis. And this is in accordance with the ruling and judgment of divine providence. Each has its individual soul, which gives it life and controls it. And that's why every individual plant has its own unique form. Although everything within each subcategory has a common structure, it's common in their appearance and their qualities. Nevertheless, the body of each has essentially some individual aspect, but which is not fully similar to the others in the same species. Remember, I told you about the grass, that they have their own imprint. The reason is because each has a unique life force limited to that plant alone, to enliven it and control it in all its details. As our sages say, there's no plant in the physical world that doesn't have a source in heaven that strikes it and tells it to grow. This is the spiritual source that is the soul of the plant, enlivening in it and controlling it in all its details and what happens during its life in accordance with the decree of Hashem, His providence. As it's known concerning individual divine providence, the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Hasidic movement, explained, not only are all detailed movements of all species of created being in accordance with that Creator's individual divine providence, and that this individual providence is the created being's life force that keeps in existence. Number one, that everything has a neshama, and that neshama is what keeps it in existence, that sustains it. But more than that, the individual movement of any individual created being has a general connection with the overall divine design for the creation. In other words, the whole purpose of creation, in order to be fulfilled, needs things happening all over the world with animals, with humans, with inanimate, with plant life. Everything that's happening is part of the ultimate purpose of creation. Accordingly, not only does an individual movement of a particular plant occur by individual divine providence, but also a single movement of a particular plant completes the divine design in bringing about the creation. From the above we derive, am I missing a page? Oh, no, I'm sorry, I skipped the paragraph. For example, that's where I'm up to. For example, thank you for having so much respect and not telling me that I skipped the paragraph. For example, I guess it finishes with the same ending, the design of creation. For example, the movement of a single plant growing in the depths of the forest or one of the high mountains or the deepest valleys where no human being passes. Generally speaking, we always associate everything with humans, our purpose. But imagine a plant that's growing somewhere in a place where there aren't any people, either in a deep forest or on top of a mountain where no one goes there, or in a deep valley where no human being goes there. Not only is the movement of that plant to its right or left, forward or backwards, throughout its span of life, in accordance with the individual providence that Hashem decreed. What did Hashem decree? That this individual plant, that's in who knows where, in a forest somewhere in the end of the world, should live a specific number of months, days, and hours. And during that time, it should turn and bend to its right and the left, forwards and backwards, so many times. So it should bend 600 times to the right, 732 times to the left, 453 times forward, and 942 times backward. Even more, the movement of this individual plant, the fact that it moves that way, has a general connection with the overall design of creation. Through the combination and the unification of all the detailed action, of all the multitude of countless myriads of details, being that exist in all the millions of species comprised in the four realms of Daimim Tzemei, Chaim Medaber, the divine design and the mystery of the entire creation becomes complete. So accordingly, not only does an individual movement of a particular plant occur by individual providence, but also a single movement of a particular plant, if it moves to the right or to the left, it completes the divine design and bringing about creation. From the above, we derive a very profound concept of serving Hashem. When a person meditates, if for a single individual plant, even the number of its individual movements and the manner in which it happens occurs by individual divine providence and are important for completing the divine design creation, certainly the human being is watched over by individual divine providence and even the most minor details of that person's needs. And it concludes, the main effort should be not to ruin his divine connection, not to cause any obstacle or hindrance to the divine flow by which Hashem feeds and sustains everything. One should direct his heart and his mind to ensure the full purity of his means of livelihood should be according to Torah. There should be no dishonesty, etc. The conduct should be in accordance with Torah mitzvahs, to daven in the morning with the minyan, setting a time for learning, fulfilling all the mitzvahs with chayas, and by doing so, he fulfills the divine design for creation. So basically, the whole point is to understand how everything is Hashgacha Pratis, and that everything that happens is not just the grass moving to the right or to the left. This means that there's a godly light coming from Chesed or Gvura Sheba Chesed or Teferet Sheba Netzach Sheba Heit Sheba Malchus Sheba Yisod, coming down, and that's brought down in this world by this blade of glass, and that's brought down by this flower, and this is brought down by this other thing, and all that is by Hashgacha Pratis. Yeah.
It said a few times about having a general connection with the overall divine design for creation. This, like, what do they mean by a general connection?
I mean, all these things together are part of the whole general purpose of creation. If someone asks, why did Hashem create the world? He wanted this world to be a dwelling place for him. How? So you say through Torah and mitzvahs. So normally you're thinking of to my Torah, to your Torah, this one's mitzvah, that one's mitzvah, what Jews are doing, what non-Jews are doing, everything. So he said, no, not only that, even what the animals do, what the plants do, what inanimate, everything all together accumulates, and that establishes the ultimate and fulfills the purpose of creation. That's what it means by general. Yeah.
Someone ruin their divine connection, like how do you divine yourself?
Right, but it means you're not allowing it to flow through you by blocking it, which means Hashem is giving somebody parnasa, and then I'm blocking it by not doing the parnasa in an honest way. So I'm not allowing it to come through. Ultimately, if I'm meant to get it, it'll come another way, but it'll be a way which is going to be more complicated, perhaps, or more indirect. If you remember, we saw in Hayom Yom just recently that tzaddikim, they know exactly Mashgacha Pratis, where they're supposed to be and where they're supposed to go, and therefore they go there. Ordinary people, Hashgacha Pratis leads them there, but again, we have to make choices. So if a person makes a choice to go to, let's say, Oloit, he made a choice to go to Sdom. That was a bad choice. True, ultimately he went there, and we see it's part of the whole creation, and therefore it's in the Chumash, it's in the Torah. But I guess he had the choice to choose to live in a place with good people, not with bad people. So even though that purpose, I mean, could also be connected to the fact that, sometimes we say a person didn't fulfill his purpose in this world, and the Neshama has to come down another time. Why didn't they fulfill it? Because they interfered with the Hashgacha Pratis, I guess. Even if they interfered, it doesn't mean that what happened to them is not Hashgacha Pratis. It's still Hashgacha Pratis. But we get back to that complicated question. Can't get away from it. I mean, for us, it's when the Rebbe said, I don't understand how people could go through life without understanding Hashgacha Pratis. It means when you understand Hashgacha Pratis, then again you understand that everything has a purpose, everything has a meaning. It's really from Hashem. That'll help me not get so angry, upset, anxiety, ruin my blood pressure, and everything else that goes along with it. Because I realize that this is being led by Hashem, and there's a purpose why this is happening, and it's all part of the purpose that's supposed to lead up to the purpose of creation. And therefore, even if it's something which even Baruchnius, something which is bothersome. The famous story, just to give an example, which I'm sure you heard, those who were here before heard it from me. The story with Rabbi Zusha and Rabbi Melech, that they were both, in the early days before they were known as big tzaddikim, they were used to wander from city to city, and they looked like homeless beggars or something. But really, they go from city to city, and they use the opportunity to inspire people to tshuva. But in one place, people accused them of something. They both got arrested, and they were in jail. The one brother asked the other brother, "Why do you look so down?" So he said, "How could I not be down? We're in a jail." And in those days, things were different than today. There was no plumbing system like we have today. So what we have advanced from today, they had a bucket, and all the garbage was in the bucket. We can't study Torah here. We can't daven. We can't say bracha. It's a place where you're not permitted to do anything. So how could I not be sad? So the other brother said to him, "But wait a second. Who put us here? Hashem put us here. Who told us not to daven and not to do mitzvahs and not do anything? Hashem told us that. So we should be happy that we're fulfilling Hashem's wish." So the other brother said, "You're right." Put his hand on his arm, and they both started dancing as if the greatest celebration just took place. All the non-Jews who were in the jail having a time, all clapping and all screaming, and it's a trailer. The guard of the jail comes around and says, "What's all this commotion about?" So one of the non-Jews say to him, "You see that bucket with all the garbage? That's why they're dancing and singing. That's crazy. If that's the case, I'll take it out." He walks over, takes it out of the room. Okay, mother, took it out of the room. Now we can daven, now we can learn, now we can do mitzvahs. But basically what they said was, even the fact that I can't daven and I can't learn is also Hashgacha Pratis. That's what Hashem wants me to do. So they approach it in a different way. But again, Hashgacha Pratis is only regarding the past. Even though there's 1,033 reasons why it happened, the real reason is because Hashem wanted it to happen. And therefore, if I look back, there's no anger, there's no hate, there's no anxiety, there's no resentment. I realize that everything is part of the plan, and I can proceed in my life in a positive way. he asks a question here after he finished saying that the angels don't have any free choice and they're just a conduit, they're just a tool in Hashem's hands. How does this consistent what it says in the Medrash? Omer Rabbi Sein is the Chrein of Racha. There's a Medrash where our sages say, Afkuhu l'matat, that something happened with one of the angels. He revealed a certain secret. They took him out. It's the name of an angel, matat, and they punished him. Amr was saying the Chrein of Racha b'Metzia that hey, our sages say this also in Gemara about Eliyahu Navi. Machyu shitin pulsin denura. They took Eliyahu and they gave him 60 lashes of fire because he also revealed something which he wasn't supposed to reveal, some sort of hidden secret. That means that the malachim can also do things that are not, so they do have some free choice. So Yishleima, so he said, now these two malachim are different than all malachim. Why? Both of them were angels that used to be humans. Eliyahu Navi was a human being. He was born as a human being, and later Hashem transformed him into an angel. And the same was with Matat. Matat is Chanoich. We just learned this in Parshas Bereishis. There was someone called Chanoich, and it says Hashem took him away because he was a tzaddik, and he saw that if he would be there longer, he might become corrupt like everybody else. So Hashem made him into an angel, something very unusual. But nevertheless, being that these two angels used to be humans, therefore they do have some degree of free choice. In other words, these angels that became humans still have something human in them. In fact, Eliyahu Navi, we know, he always comes back down here, comes to a bris, he comes to the Seder, he comes to learn with different tzaddikim. So because of the human part of him, there's free choice. But all other angels, they have no choice, they're only like a tool and an axe in the hand of the woodchopper. Now we conclude. Now we're coming to the end and concluding with the pasuk. Meaning even in those powerful supernal beings, which are the angels, they're pure intellect, which means they're the highest form of existence. There's nothing there besides you. It says even the angel, sort of the body of the angel is made up of two things, fire and air. Everything in the world is made up of four elements, earth, air, fire, and water. But they're made of two elements, fire and air. In other words, the four elements are divided into two parts. Fire and air are more refined. Earth and water are more coarse, they're more tangible. Fire and air are a little bit more refined. So the angels, number one, they don't have four elements, they only have two elements. And even the two are the more refined elements. It's based on a pasuk, which is in Baruch Nafshi. Let me see if you have it here. Yeah, take a look on page 73. It says, he makes the winds his messengers, his angels, the blazing fires his servants. The simple meaning is that the fire is one of Hashem's servants, the wind is one of Hashem's servants, they're doing Hashem's missions. But the deeper meaning is that they are angels, that they are made up of fire and air, the two things, the two elements. But the ikru akarvas, how you say this, but what really sustains them is not the fire, not the air, but like we learned before, the words of Hashem that creates everything and sustains everything. And without that, the four elements would just fall apart. Like when you burn something, everything goes apart. That's what would happen to everything without the fifth element, which is what? Which is Hashem's words. The nimtza. So the end result is Kileis Bar Minoch. There's really nothing besides him. So there's no concept of partnership, which means l'shatev shem shemayim v'dover acher, to join together Hashem and this or and that. Be'emes kadai kishaper le'shum metzias klal, because nothing really exists outside of Hashem Himself, and therefore everything is coming from Hashem and through Hashem, and that's really the essence of Hashem Echad. What we mean when we say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Okay, what I'd like to do is do a little review. In the back here we have the list of turns, which will help us review the mimer, and then we go on to the next. So tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem, we'll review the mimer. Yeah.
If that on the footnote that Mark was the first period by itself. So if that's true, then I have to communicate enough after.
The law was created by Hashem.